bloopers.
Well, welcome to this podcast. We're gonna talk about the Waco siege. Um, Now it's time for the presentation. I am the moderator. My name is Eugenio Ángel Medrano Díaz. My major is Ingeniería en Administración y Sistemas, and my student ID is 2197859.
My name is Edgar Abraham Colin Lang. My student ID is 2194482, and my major is IMA, Ingeniero Mecánico Administrador.
For me, I'm Miguel de Jesús Platas Malacara. My student number ID or student ID is 21 97 61 1. And my major is EIC o Ingeniería en Automatización y Sistemas Inteligentes.
Hello, my name is Enrique Arturo Chavez Chavez. My school ID is 22 7 60 89, and my major will be IMC or Mechatronics.
Hello, my name is Ana Flores Cavazos. My student ID is 21 34 637, and I'm currently studying mechatronics.
Hello, my name is Alan Giovanni Baez Aguirre. My student ID is 2088 564. My current career is engineer in mechatronic.
Hello, my name is Glorinda Romero Gonzalez. My student ID is 22 76 140, and my major is ITSE, Ingeniería en Telecomunicaciones y Sistemas Electrónicos.
Hello, my name is Guillermo Uriet Cruz. My student ID is 2115277, and my major is Mechatronics Engineering, IMTC.
Well, welcome to all listeners who have tuned in for today's podcast. We ask of you to subscribe to the channel for future content and activate notifications to be informed of our next upload. The topic we're about to discuss is the Waco Siege, or also known as the Waco Massacre. Giving an introduction to this event, it all began on the 28th of February of 1998, as the ATF prepared to raid a compound by the name of Mount Carmel, where the cult had named the branch Davidians, led by the prophet David Koresh, had been reported both of having a hold of a cache of illegal guns and modifying them, as well as being in charge of manufacturing drugs. This was evidenced by thermal images that showed a hotspot on the very center of the building, as well as multiple packages containing chemical agents being delivered right to their doorsteps. Now, as talks broke down, both sides opened fire, resulting in the death of 4 federal agents with a dozen more being injured, and 6 cultists having been reportedly killed. This only on the first confrontation. This itself will mark the first of 51 days where the standoff between the Davidians and the American authorities will take place, finally concluding on the 29th of April of the same year, with the U.S. Attorney General, Janet Reno, giving the FBI the order to assault the building once again, resulting in a tragedy that has become a case of study regarding the governmental use of force, the people's civil liberties, the media's role in shaping the public perception both in favor or against a side, as well as the subsequent rise of far-right extremism and militia movements all throughout the United States of America, who considered that the government was using its power to silence them.
Well, first, I would like to asking you first, what do you know about this case? We already know some basic facts, as you said, Enrique, such as the date, the place, the place of the origin, and what it happened. But what about the reason behind it? And why did it really happen? And who exactly was involved? These are important questions because they help us to understand and not just the event itself, but also the context and the decisions to lead us to such a tragic outcome. Well, and you can say your opinion, Edgar.
Ah, thank you, thank you. This movement was something I didn't know about, but after researching, I really I realized it was very important, not because of the deaths, which are were horrible. It also caused a big controversy about the government use of the force, and I think this has this has too many problems with it today. I'm sure all of us here have heard about the use of excessive force or case that happen over in States, and I think many ideas or problems can come from this situation.
Well, who's next? You can say, Enrique.
Well, respecting my knowledge of the case, it all started due to various reports surrounding David Kurtz, where it was indicated that, well, first of all, he was illegally modifying guns, he was making automatic rifles, as well as holding a huge stock of explosives such as grenades and their pins. It was also supposedly reported that he was creating drugs and manufacturing throughout the local community. And there were also reports from the cult's parents that were worried about their children who were supposedly being molested by their leader. Um, Also, respecting the main figures of each side, we have Janet Reno that represented the American authorities, being composed of the FBI, ADF, as well as some military advisors. While on the other side, you have, well, David Courage, who was the prophet of the Branch Davidians. Respecting the negotiations, their efforts were greatly overshadowed by the FBI, that immediately resorted and, well, it was sad, to stand up tactics, which didn't help the constantly degrading situation.
Yeah, you're right. Gloria, you can.
Okay, this problem has its origins when the ATF, the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, they were told that this sect, which was the head of the sect was David Koresh. They, as Enrique said, they had like many arsenal, big arsenal of illegal firearms and explosives. So they decided to get their some of the how can I say it? Some of their people to get into the sect to investigate to search more about it, but after that they wanted to like arrest all the people, but the plan didn't go any anywhere.
Well, I guess just to recap what my oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. Well, Alan, you can be next.
As far as I know, the incident of well, the incident happened when these these peoples, the Davidians, um, started to gather in firearms for the arrival of Jesus Christ and the end of the war. This the FBI wanted to arrest the leader of the cult and those who have those arms, those illegal arms. But as far as we know, it didn't go well resulting in the death of some AVA engines and other ones were injured. This resulted in the second assault, where it prolonged even more, and the FBI started to attack these members of the cult, and well, it resulted in many deaths. Then was the fire that practically killed not only part of those cult members, but innocents as well, such as chills and women. And then was the tearing gas that the FBI used, and some of the rights that were violated in this incident was for part of the cult was this was sexual assault and possession of illegal weapons. And for the part of the ABA agents, we know that it was used excessive force for what it come to be the incident.
Well, thank you for your opinion. You can continue, Guillermo. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, just to recap on what my hold on one second. Just to recap on what my uh, team members have mentioned. Well, this whole situation started because there was a cult called the Branch Davidian, and although this was primarily unrelated to their beliefs, they engaged in a lot of illegal activities. Mainly, the one that mainly caused the raid and the whole incident would be their use of illegal firearms that they used to finance their cult. Or also as well, the cult leader, whose name was my team members have mentioned, David Koresh. He also was invested in other illegal activities, like for example, child abuse, conspiracy, and well, all of this resulted in the ATF, the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, conducting a raid on the cold space, which was a farm in Waco, Texas. The raid went wrong, and that started a weeks-long negotiation period that is infamous because of how it ended. I'm pretty sure we will talk more about that later.
Yeah, host. Yeah, Dana, you can continue.
Adding a little bit of what my classmate just said, yes, it was a cult, but what is not really talked about is that David Koresh, when he originally called the police, began a biblical rant that left the police dispatch confused on what he was even talking about. And according to the government autopsies performed, at least 20 of the 76 to 80 people who died in April 19 were either mercy killed or murdered by older Branch Davidians. There are multiple TV shows or movies that talks about this topic, and unlike other historical problems, there's specifically a show that is fairly accurate and doesn't intentionally aim to be wildly wrong. The issue with Waco is its portrayal is that it's difficult to create a show that is extremely balanced. You either have Alex Jones, America Wake Up, or Waco, or in the Line of Duty Ambush in Waco, where the author Phil Pennyworth professes to be a pro-ATF propaganda and discusses Waco as a government plot. And this is typically either pro or anti-government, and for some reason finding a middle position has been really, really challenging.
Yeah, you're right. Like you said, there are actually like two series that talk about this tragic event, but where we know how how it was in there in like being us like a victim, and how happened there in like we 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 being like a victim being there, and we know we see more things that we couldn't see in the news. But now who's gonna continue? Who's
Okay, it's my turn. I can talk.
Yeah, yeah, yes, you can continue.
Oh, este, ¿cómo se dice? We can continue with this theme about talking that Devins is a religious group, like my teammates say, and it's important to say about the children abuse and manipulation of members. We can view in multiple of these series that mention the case of the este, entrevistas, the how the people survivors talk about this is another thing to view. Someone says about they take military. Yes, we can say he's a military. Military, military. Term exercise. Someone's military exercise. The or woman's that is abused or obligated to married with David Courage. These all of these are claimed but to be cows. David Courage, who claimed to be a prophet with divine revelation about the end of the world. Oh, I. After this, people die. It's a bad thing. This is a really bad thing. The, the form that is the ADF and the FBI contributes is very poor. Is we is better. There is better things to do. Yes, it's a lot of things, but I ¿cómo se dice adelantar? I'm changing the terms here. Things later.
Well, like you said, they could have prevented more because of the tear gas. The using of the tear gas was a tragic form to um, prevent or reduce the oh well I I don't know, but um, maybe they thought that the use of tear gas maybe could have um, um, could be more effective that than I don't know talk to them, talk to the leader. How is his name? Who was it? Courage?
David Courage. David
David
Courage.
Courage. Yeah, they could have talked to them to him, but they couldn't. Oh, well, they thought that it could maybe be more effective the use of tear gas, but well, everybody has already say their opinion. Okay. Well, for the second question, What do you think about the rights that were violated during this event? It was not only a violent confrontation, it is also a tragic situation that involved the lives of innocent people, including the children. And in that sense, we could say it reflects like a negligence on the part of authorities, because by using certain strategies, like I said, the use of tear gas, they not only put minors at risk, as well as the adults inside of the compound. When when we look at it in this way, we can start to wonder, besides the right to life, what other things, what other rights might have been violated. Um, the freedom of religion, the right to a fair process, or even the right to be protected from excessive use of force. What do you think about it? About this? Dana, you can continue.
Thank you. If we delve into the articles that were actually violated, we can balance them both from both sides, from the government and from the people in the cult. So we can say that the Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that everyone has the right to live, liberty, and security of person. And we also have everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, that this was not taken into account while they were doing this whole mess up. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel. In here, talking about the tear gas, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment, and especially the right of the children, that children have the right to protection from harm and the right to live and development. There were over 20 children in the compound. The government's assigned tactics arguably failed to adequately protect them, and many died in the final fire. And the extended stress of the siege likely harmed their mental and physical well-being. And last of all, the Article 12, the right to privacy and security, that says no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, and home. The military's approach, including surveillance, armed vehicles, and especially the tear gas in here, could be seen as arbitrary, invasive, and particularly very exhausting, non-violent methods.
Yeah, well, Gloria, you can continue.
Thank you. We have to make um we have to say that there's a big polemic around this about a topic that who was the guilty in this situation, because some people say that no, it was FBA or the police, the government who decided to take such a drastic methods um, to arrest these people, or if it was the guilty of the same people that were in the cult for being there. And well, we have to say that the right to life was completely violated by the two sides. Um, Obviously, there were more people who died from the cult, people from the cult. I think there were only 4 to 6 police members who died. But another thing I have to say that um, some another right who that was violated was the freedom from inhuman treatment. I mean, the people who were in the call in this place, and in the end it was set on fire. Um, they were tortured. They were um, they pass by a psychological torture because the FBA decided to how do you say, some drastic tactics such as noise and the likes that didn't let them sleep. And in the end, the tear gas was the worst part.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of things that lead to that fire in the zone, but I don't know if we can um, if there are one only one guilty because everyone in there are or everyone in there make something to lead into that tragedy. But yeah, it was so bad. Who wants to continue? Miguel,
Oh,
Miguel, you can
thanks,
continue.
thanks. Give me a moment. Well, thanks. Well, like Laura say, it's difficult to separate with bad with the worst in this situation with the bad guy. Well, I don't have a form to say that, but we need to be partial. We need to with this. The Paris Deviants were clearly a dangerous and extreme group. The intervention was necessary, yes. They put illegal weapons, potential child abuse, and fanatical behavior required the action by authorities. This is not a question. This and mm, is necessary about this. But the way that FBI handled the situation was completely inhumane and catastrophical flawed. We have escalated 51 days siege during in which the government prioritized control and dominance over the preservation of life. Uh, we can say in using the gas, we have a massive fire that killed 66 people, many of them children. Where is we can say that fundamental rights were violated by this. For the branch Devils, well, where is David encouraged? We have the excessive force, we have the illegal the weapons, we, we can talk about the deprivation of food, water, multiple the rights important to the human and is part of the union. We can put a simple example in Korea del North, in North Korea, during the Holocaust. We can view the people as the adults put children in some situation as the separate from the world in teaching them. No, this is what you see. This is all the world that you see. The children born grow with this. We have a it's phy- phy- so physiological pressure, and this is infringing the right of life. Well, in government way, mayhaps we have the government can be legally interview is have a justified to intervene, but the method used ignore basic human rights. You kill people on the final way. There is better ways to do that. The situation. There is a error 8B at AFT. Yes, the information was leaked and the situation escalated to that. But where there is a better way. Someone told me that one death is a tragedy, a million is only a statistic. Where is the humanization in that? We can view this in live, in the news, and it's normal. We
Yeah, you're right. This is the victims the 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 only use of victims like a statistic was terrible, but um who wants to continue? Guillermo, you can continue.
Well, it's a little off topic, but I just thought it would be interesting to mention it. I remember hearing or listening to some interviews with the cult leader, the David Koresh guy, and he mentioned the something along the same lines that we're talking about right now. Um, he would go on a lot of rants about how what the ATF was doing was anti-American or against his freedom of practicing religion or his freedom of being able to bear arms. So I just thought that was interesting that a lot of the argument that the way the authorities during the Waco siege situation acted was the argument that it was unlawful was also shared by the cult leader himself.
Yeah. Well, who wants to continue? Say his opinion. Enrique.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Before we continue, we'll need to clarify, well, a time period either before or during the raid in which the human rights violations took place. If you were to talk beforehand, you were mostly be talking about David Koresh. Well, what did he do? According to multiple eyewitnesses before and after the incidents, he was brainwashing young children by the minimum of the age of 10 to carry out sexual relationships with him. This got so bad that the parents had to resort to go to the local police to report the cases in search for help. But well, moving on for the ADF and the FBI during the raid, well, you have that despite the negotiators' best efforts to warn them, they resorted to intimidation tactics. And well, what it is composed of? Well, first of all, you have, for example, blasting loud music all throughout the night. You also have rubbing the engines of armored troop carriers, as well as demolishing holy places, such as the tomb of the founding father by the name of Benjamin Rutten.
Ah, well, Edgar, you can continue.
Thank you. Um, like my coworkers say, the right that we violate, we're the right to life because more people, more people die, and the lethal force was used. Um, I think this case shows should serve should serve to improve the way government intervenes, especially by trying to be so non-violence as possible, because the most important thing is the people and the people lie, no? The right to a fair trial was also violated, since the way they were attacked without a prior trial, and the people the people who were there were not doing things right, but even so, I think they use the lethal force, and that's why I think these actions were not the right one, and or least not the most appropriate.
Yeah, you're right. Alan, you can continue.
Well, here we have of course, the violation of the rights in both sides. First one will be the occultist. In the occultist, of course, committed things like murder for when it comes to be the the agents of the FBA, also manipulations and child abuse was the right of freedom of those people, those citizens in the town that they were. And in case of the ACE, the FBA agents, was the use of excess force. And well, we can include the fact that they literally use something as tear gas, something we know is nothing but good. I mean, well, the use of excess force for what where it tends to be the FBA agents using little force to were to against the cultists, which of course didn't result well, and also didn't mention this also resulted in another incident after what happened in the in this mere massacre of the Waco. So this is because of that. Well, of course, we could say that the use force for the SBA wasn't the best option for them for act against this.
Yeah, well, everyone have say okay, yeah. Well, finally, let me ask you this. Would you have done if you had been in the position of the authorities at that time? What would you have done differently? Personally, if I had been an authority, um, or well, in their place, I think my first thought would have been about the safety of the children. The decision of use tear gas, knowing it could harm them, was incredibly risky. It would have prioritized protecting the most vulnerable and then focus it on negotiating. Um, might have the negotiations have taken a long time, but maybe weeks or even months. But in the end, a slower process like this could have helped us avoid such as devastating tragedy. But sometimes taking more time is worth it if it means saving lives, especially the life of children who had no choice to be in there. So I believe um, to be a more patient, careful, and humane approach could have changed the outcome completely. But how what do you think about this question? Guillermo, you can continue.
Well, I feel like an angle that is important to mention would be that there's a lot of criticism of how not only how the authorities acted on the situation, but also the motives they had behind the way they acted. Because there's a lot of talk about how the authorities changed up a lot of their procedures so that it would look good when the news covered their story. A lot of the things that they would have done, or a lot of the things that they did, were made with the goal of seeming heroic or seeming like they were doing something really, really complicated, which it was. but they sort of let their own ego get to them. And instead of doing things the proper way, they decided to try to make everything a show for the news stations and the media. That's what I've heard from various people who were telling their perspective of the story, people involved in the whole situation. I'm not sure exactly how much of it is true, but that's what I have heard from researching various different perspectives from people who were there, both and people who were worked for the ATF and people who worked for the FBI, and also some of the children that survived from the that were eventually rescued from the site in Waco.
Yeah, well, who wants to continue? Alan, you can continue.
Well, when it comes to what we could have done in the case of to solve this problem better, well, um, and when it comes to the authorities of that intervene in this incident, well, first of all, as we mentioned, we could first thing first to put in in the table was the life of the most vulnerable, the innocent child, woman, citizens that doesn't have anything related to and or were victims of this cult. And of course, we have to prioritize their safety eh, above, well, using force against the enemy. Well, this with this new approach, we can focus especially in what we wanted to do in the first place. Well, now, next will be the approach against the cultures. Negotiating will be, of course, the best option. Try to negotiate with them and try to approach more peacefully and avoid some confrontation that will result in deaths of innocent and people and well the rest of the people that of course that shouldn't be happy in the first place. Now, if force is required, the last thing we want to do is kill people. So in this case, we need to approach in. Of course, we have to avoid the use of force, but if it is required, we need to avoid killing those people. That has to be a really last resort that we really shouldn't be wanting to do. That of course we could avoid some next incident that could happen after the main incidents of right.
Yeah, well, Gloria, you can say your opinion.
Um, uh, Something that I think that definitely will have, well, it could have had changed the history of this tragedy. I think if the FBA or the ATF, the police, the agents, if they had knew something about the ideas and beliefs of this sect, this cult, such as the as David Koresh uh, teach uh, all his people like, oh, the end of the world, and you're gonna have to protect your family, and there will be a war. If they had known about this topic, I think uh, they could have done a better negotiation and not just attack, and avoiding that provocation with ice, with noise, um, and with the tear gas. I think that definitely will have changed.
Yeah, and like you said, the use of the a lot of methods that they use, they could um really they could have changed their opinion and 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 think better, like if it is really a good decision, like put noise in the midnight, like if there is gonna change their mind, but I don't know. Who's gonna continue? Enrique?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's actually my personal belief that a way in which human loss could have been prevented was that instead of undercutting in negotiations and immediately resorting to intimidation tactics, that was what was used. You will also need to consider the current state of those you're facing, in which case the debatings were really not in a right state of mind, and they were also very, very heavily armored, uh, having in the armory a total of almost 100 explosives, 250 machine guns, multiple anti-matter rifles, automatic rifles, and more. Then again, the FBI and ADF were actually monitoring David Kodesh uh, at least a month before the Waco siege took place. In the surveillances, they discovered his weekly pattern in which the audience used a repeating pattern. What could have been done is that in one of these instances, they could have approached him and arrested him on the spot. Instead, as previously stated by will be my teammates, they decided to put up a show that actually costed around $1 million per day to maintain.
Yeah, well, finally, Edgar, you can continue.
Um, thank you, thank you. Um, well, I think the way it was handled could have better and much less violent. I think they should have wait a little longer before using lethal force, especially lethal force, because this causes more harm than expected. And this case see me to like something that can lead to debate, since science think that we're not legal, we're behind on. The way they acted, in my opinion, made everything worse, which is why many people are on sides and others are on opposite sides. That's the way I think more investigation is needed to eh, understand this topic.
Yeah, well, Nana, you can continue.
Well, in my opinion, I think, they should have focused on how to get the kids out of there because they were dragged there or even born in there. So they were especially the ones who had the highest amount of sexual assault complaints out of them all. So that was a priority, and they had the resources, to be honest. And that confrontation was just a way to show how they are not prepared for those cases, and their first instinct is to rush that fight or flight mechanism. And after that, gather as much as information as they could, keep it in low as the media can direct the plot line to their political benefits. And At the end, this shows how the media can read the story, leading it to plot and separate people rather than show a full story, where both sides can have their own great shades. If their negotiations have not worked at the moment, they could have just social pressure and spread awareness as a more peaceful trait to walk it through. But as first we can get, both of them were armed to defeat, so the topic is really difficult to manage. Maybe they could get support from other associations or even other country associations. And sadly, this is just a messy tragedy that we'll never know the full truth of what happened, no matter how accurately media tries to portray it.
Yeah, I think we all agreed that the FBI should must haven't have made made thought better to solve that problem, because the decision that they thought um, well were such a lead to a big problem. But well, we don't we like you said, we didn't we will never know how much it will change. But well, and in conclusion, Miguel, you can say your conclusion.
No,
Oh,
about the rights, I can talk about this.
yeah, yes, you can continue.
Uh, about this case, I like to say about what if that the FBA participate in a better way, negotiate. I don't know what if the ADA, AFA, the first one, the first one participate in a better way that nobody dies in the group that is formed. David Courage, he were present, see, arrested. I like to say that, but that is not the truth. That is not the case. We have our information about this is very poor. Is 30 years ago. The news will say that they say need to say what is the best. About this, what I will do in the case, well, in case of FBI is dehumanization. We is a better way. Is a siege of 51 days. We have this problem during 51 days. We can negotiate. We can este press push pressure. I don't know. Don't use the weapons. You don't use lethal force. There is people up in here. There is people that nothing in common that with David Courage. There is people that nothing in particular. That is only the poor look to born in this situation. Our information about this is very poor. In my case, I will negotiate. My put pressure is like a lawyer. You put pressure in a moment set, but we are talking about a group that is have weapons, a very dangerous group. We can talk about some children or these are very bad as the analogy. That was last one. But yes, is a better way. Negotiations, este, keep keep someone that the David Courage would like it, and you can ¿cómo se dice olvidar? You can forgive him and that group. Yes, you can have the people alive. Yes, but No, that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, anyone has wanna say his conclusion or no? Well, like a general conclusion for everybody. The Waco siege remains one of the most controversial and tragic events in the modern American history, and it highlights the danger of excessive force, the consequence of poor decisions making, like we said, and of the FBI, and the devastating cost when the safety of innocent lives, like the children, especially they, is not prioritized. And it reminds us that tragedies like these are not only about what happened in the past, but it is also about the lessons we must carry forward to prevent them from happening again. Well, then we, Enrique, you wanna talk? Yeah.
Yeah, so as a final sign off for this topic, we should clearly state that the Waco siege was a tragedy that took the life of over 80 people, among them being 28 children. Well, if we continue of what happened after Waco, we can find that, for example, the Branch Davidians that survived the incident established themselves on top of the old Mount Carmel, establishing a new church for the religion, and establishing that David Koresh will someday return to lead them to salvation. If you follow, for example, the government, they ended up releasing, if I remember correctly, 10 years afterwards, a final report stating that they had no involvement in the fire and that it was all due to the Davidians, even though there is no clear evidence of who was actually to blame. Um, Regarding the violence that followed, we have a case that was connected to Waco siege in 1995. Here, what happened is that Timothy McWade, being inspired of what happened in Waco, and its second year anniversary, and the same day that the siege ended, being 19th of April, decided to bomb a governmental office in Oklahoma City, taking the life of 168 people. This will end up starting the new age against domestic terrorism in the United States.
Well, Enrique, thank you for your conclusion. Thank you for your attention and your opinion. With this, we uh, with this we finally um ¿cómo se
Concluded.
dice? Acabar.
Concluded.
Finish.
Conclude, conclude.
We
Finished.
finally
Ah,
finish.
bueno, eso lo cortamos ya que ya. Well, with with this, we can conclude this podcast. Thank you for your attention and thank you for everyone who has talked his opinion, their opinion. Sorry. Well,
You're welcome.